Final Fantasy games always offer a great time. The many different lands, characters and stories all have their fans. But one game that did divide the fans was Final Fantasy XII. Some people didn't like the combat as it kind of played itself, and some hated the protagonist, but it was one of the more interesting games in the franchise. The game has been out for over 10 years now, and it's finally getting a remaster treatment. Coming from the same team who created the brilliant Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD remaster a few years ago, can Zodiac Age hope to improve upon the original and try gain a few new fans? And for a game just over 10 years old, it feels remarkably fresh and enjoyable. The story is arguably one of the strongest in the franchise. Instead of following the story of an individual being chosen to save the world, Final Fantasy XII's story follows a group of characters trying to prevent an imminent war between the nations of Ivalice. XII's story of war and politics is a nice change of pace from other Final Fantasy titles. And for the most part, the characters add to the story. The main character you play as is Varna, a young lad whose brother died in the war, and he lives day to day doing the odd job and pickpocketing a few folks. And you see the game's world through his eyes, and he's an alright lead, but he does kind of feel boring, definitely compared to the other characters such as the wrongly accused military commander Bash, or the cool and scene-stealing Balthier the Sky Pirate. In all honesty, bar Varn and his childhood friend Penelo, all the main characters are very interesting, and any one of these characters would have been a better choice as a main protagonist. But hey, Varn isn't as bad as many people make out. As for the combat, the Zodiac Age is certainly an acquired taste, to say the least. Instead of going for a more traditional turn-based RPG experience, the Zodiac Age does a few things differently. First off, there's no more random encounters, and when you're in combat you can freely move around the enemy, very much like in Xenoblade Chronicles. But the biggest and best thing about Zodiac Age is the gambit system. Gambits are basically auto-commands, and you can assign these to your party of characters. Say you've got a character whose HP is below 30%, you can assign a gambit to heal any characters whose health is under 30%. Gambits are a very clever system, and while it can make it feel like the game is playing itself, it can be incredibly rewarding to see your strategy work out in gameplay. It's not just the gambits that offer plenty of depth, the job system also returns, but with a few new changes. In the original one, you could only pick one job for each character, and that would restrict what attacks, spells and the like your character can perform. But with the Zodiac Age, your character can now have 2 different jobs, and with that the job system really does shine. Allowing you to pick another job allows you to beef up your character's weaknesses, and having 2 jobs for each character offers so much depth and possibility it is possible to create an ultimate team if you put the time to it. Final Fantasy XII was a beautiful looking game on the PS2 when it released all the way back in 2006. It literally pushed the console to its limits. And now over 10 years old, the game has seen a nice little graphical spruce up. The game is in now full screen 16:9 and all the textures and character models have seen some work. And bar some iffy facial textures, the Zodiac Age looks great on the PS4. With the added support of the Pro, this is certainly the best looking version of 12 to date. As typical for a Final Fantasy game, the soundtrack is wonderful, mainly because it's C-Square remastering the whole soundtrack with a full orchestra, and it's certainly a great update that probably makes this soundtrack one of the best soundtracks in the history of the series. Conclusion time now, and Final Fantasy XII was certainly an acquired taste when it was originally released all those years ago. But with the release of the Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy XII finally gets the recognition it truly deserves. From its stories to its characters, there's a lot to like here, but the real star of the game is the gambit system, a hugely clever, rewarding and incredibly game-changing system that makes me hope we see it again sometime. Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age gets a 9.5 out of 10 with the title of amazing. Thank you for watching my review, like, rate and subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming. Bye!